I suspect we've had the major announcements. We're not expecting any big surprises. There's usually something though, so there might be a small cost of living type relief, but I suspect that the glossies and the Treasurer's speech will really be reminding the Australian people of the various measures that have already been put in place by this government.
Jo, does the decision to extend energy rebates to households and small businesses until the end of 2025 make economic sense?
We know that there's a portion of Australians and small businesses that are doing it really tough. We've been talking about cost of living for over a year now. Last year, I guess there was this whole debate about, does it add to inflation? This year, inflation is a little bit lower, so it's less controversial. And in a way, I see this as a stepping down. We know that when we give people handouts, it can be very hard to take them away. So some people thought that the government might extend the whole $300 over another year and push the decision down the track. So I think this is a step in the right direction. Put an end date on it, slow the pace down, and I suspect that once we come to December, the mid-year economic update, that electricity subsidy will be removed.
The OECD has downgraded the forecast for global growth as a consequence of geopolitical uncertainty and higher trade barriers. How do you expect that the budget will address the Donald Trump impact, the possible impact on the Australian economy?
It's incredibly hard to evolve the Trump tariffs into your forecasts with any certainty. We don't know what the final tariff playbook will look like. And at the moment, what we're seeing is economies like the US, the real economy is actually also being impacted just by the trade uncertainty. Tariffs are on, they're off, they're delayed, they're here, they're there. He's focused, he's not focused. And so we know that businesses and households are putting on ice plans to invest and hire, even those firms that might benefit from tariffs. So it's highly uncertain. The way that it's likely to come through is a downgrade to what we call major trading partner growth. So that's the average growth of the countries that we export to. And that will flow through to exports, to corporate profits, to revenue, government revenue. But it will be a best guess of what we might see, and it probably won't have a huge amount of conviction. And Treasury's not alone in that. All economists are facing that uncertainty at the moment.
What does it mean for programs such as the government's Future Made in Australia policy? Does it make that more important? And do you expect we'll hear a lot more about that tomorrow night?
So it is interesting that we've seen ESG generally around the world from investors following this US lead, seemingly becoming less of a talking point in some countries. And there is a view that Trump's policies will slow down energy transition. For Australia, though, we're running our own race and we have our own issues, both domestically and in terms of our export base. I think it's really encouraging that our government has not retaliated with tariffs. We don't want that tit-for-tat tariff war that is very damaging for both sides. And so I think to the extent that we can use Future Made in Australia, the Buy Australia program, to try to offset some of the pain for those sectors that are most exposed, most concentrated, I think that is a better economic policy. It is a better way forward than slapping on retaliatory tariffs.
What do you think the Buy for Australia or Buy in Australia program will look like?
So it's not a program we focused on very much, to be honest. In a macro sense, it's relatively small. But effectively what it is, it's a program around government procurement. And I think governments can play a really important role. You know, they have a lot of money to spend into the economy. They are invest in the economy. And I think to have a Buy Australia focus on that, you still want to have an eye on costs, obviously, but I think a focus on that and asking the question, where can we use our procurement to support industries that have a future but are being impacted by either tariffs or the uncertainty around tariffs? I think that's good policy.
Do you see this as being a budget that will fire up business confidence and investment?
I don't think so. I mean, we've been talking a lot about this is the budget no one thought we were going to have, and we're hearing a lot that there's no major surprises in it. And I guess if you step back and you think about what has business been agitating for in the last 6 months or so, it really has been around productivity enhancing reform. And this does not feel like a reform budget. It feels like an election budget. And in fact, what we've been hearing from the opposition doesn't feel like big productivity enhancing reform. And this has been a long running conversation in Australia. We all know what we need to do. We've had the Productivity Commission, a number of reviews. I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon.
So, Jo, the federal election could be called as early as this weekend. What are the implications for how we should look at the document tomorrow night?
So I think there's a couple of things we should look at. The first one is we should be looking at any new policies that happen to be announced. And within the budget, you can get this line that has a dollar amount, and that's for policy decisions that have been made but not yet announced or ready for publication. So if there's a number in there, that will give us a sense of how big any election spending might look like. So economists will be looking at that. I think we also want to look at the government's role in the economy in a cyclical perspective. So we've seen, for example, tax as a share of GDP has been rising. Does that continue to rise as we look out across the budget forwards? What is the government spending on? Where is debt going? What interest rates are underlying that? And of course, the spending on the so-called Big Five: defence, NDIS, healthcare, aged care, and the interest bill. More broadly, and I think this is where we might be disappointed on detail, we as a nation have a structural budget deficit. We are reliant on government spending. It's a larger share of the economy than it's been in many decades. Australians expect a certain level of service, but we're not really having a conversation about how we pay for it and the economic cost of the way we pay for it. So this reliance, for example, on personal income tax and corporate tax, rather some more efficient taxes. And I think ultimately, as we look forward and we think about the big challenges, whether it's Trump and tariffs, geopolitics, ageing population, energy transition, AI and innovation, we need to make sure we have a resilient and robust country, and doing that means we want to be in the best shape that we can. We want to get this productivity moving. That's how we grow the pie and the share of the pie. I think we're going to be a bit disappointed on that this time around.
Okay, great to speak to you, Jo Masters. Thank you.
Thanks.